how long does it take an audiobook narrator to record an audiobook? The inspiration for this video came from a comment on one of my other videos from Nova Lane, or Voice of Nova, on TikTok. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to talk about the actual recording itself. We can do other videos down the line about the prep process, which basically involves reading the book and analyzing the text, the scenes, the characters, the motivations, the voices you're going to do. That's the prep work before the actual recording itself. But for this video, how long does it actually take to record the damn thing? Now, when I first got started over a decade ago, it might have taken me almost 5 hours to complete one finished hour of audio, because basically I was a one-man band and I was figuring it out as I went along. That meant I was recording one long track for each chapter, including every single mistake, mouth noise, any kind of retakes, that kind of thing. And then after the fact, I had to spend hours editing all those things out. Now, over time, I got better at using the editing software, I got better at recording, so I was making less mistakes, so it took a shorter amount of time. But the real game changer, which you might have heard of before if you watch videos like this, is called punch and roll. Now, punch and roll is where you start recording a chapter or a track, and every time you make a mistake, you push stop. Then you take your cursor in your recording software and go back to before that mistake happened, and you have it set up then that when you push record once more, it plays back about 3 to 5 seconds, depending on your style, so you can hear yourself in your headphones saying the last good line, and then you can punch in right before that mistake happened. So for example, if I'm narrating something and the dialogue says, "She pulled into the driveway and parked her car. She then stepped out into the darkness and then dropped her ass." And the actual text is actually, "She dropped her purse." I would move my cursor over to right after I said, "She stepped out into the darkness." So then once I push record, it'll play back the last 1 or 2 sentences. So I can hear in my headphones, "She stepped out into the darkness," and I can immediately punch in and say, "She dropped her purse," and then continue on with the rest of the text. So basically, once you're finished recording that chapter, you've already done all the editing. Now, this takes a lot of practice to make sure that you've also timed everything properly. That was my big problem starting out, is I would leave gaps and spaces in there. So the idea is to perform while you're narrating, so you're leaving the appropriate amount of spacing between each sentence and phrase, so that you're not leaving these big gaps in either for you or your editor to edit out later to make everything sound more natural. So the thing that took practice over time was practicing actually performing well over time in these chapters, so there's much less to cut out, much less time to stop. So what does that mean? How long does it take me to produce one finished hour of audio nowadays? So for me nowadays, with much practice, good technology, good recording space, I get in about a 2-to-1 ratio, meaning for every one finished hour of recording, it takes me about 2 hours. And that will take time and practice. You will not immediately get to that. I certainly didn't. And that's with frequent breaks, because it gets hot in the booth. So that doesn't mean that I'm recording, multiple hours per day. So in 8 hours, I'm recording 4 hours of finished audio. The big difference it makes is how many mistakes you're making that day. How warmed up are you? How in the zone or in the scene are you? How good is the writing? I'll have a lot more difficulty and stop more frequently if the writing isn't up to par and just isn't the way people naturally speak. But you have to honor the writer and you have to actually say what they wrote. So you need to find a way as an actor to make that come out naturally, but that might take a little bit longer. You'll make more mistakes and your day of recording will take a lot longer to complete. So basically it varies from narrator to narrator, but also don't beat yourself up if you're just starting and it takes you 5 hours to complete 1 hour of finished audio, because you're still learning the ropes. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Eventually it will take less time, especially if you learn punch and roll recording. I fought it for a long time. I don't know why. I was just against the status quo, but don't do it. Just practice it. It's hard at first, but it gets easier and easier and easier. I thought punch and roll would ruin the flow of the recording, ruin my performances, and it frankly did at first because I was having to stop and start so many times. But it's worth it if you stick with it, because eventually you'll get used to it and you'll jump right back into those performances. Your stops will happen less frequently, and you'll have finished audio file when you walk out of that booth, as opposed to sitting there for hours editing what you just recorded. So I hope that was somewhat helpful and wasn't too meandering. And let me know in the comments if you've had a similar experience with punch and roll, if you fought it at first, but now you really have grown to love it, or if you just still rail against it and will never do it ever again, because there is no right way to do this. I just found so many times narrators saying this has helped them so much, and I know for sure that it has helped me over time. So please follow for more videos like this, but also stick around for when I'm going live with audiobooks that I'll be recording soon. And until then, love is love and be kind to each other.